Get started. Just a quick note, we have a sign-up sheet that's circulating, so if you could please fill it out so that we can keep in touch, that would be absolutely fantastic. So that's going around the room right now. Just fill it out and we'll get in touch with you. But welcome, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to our panel discussion and also introduce myself. My name is Chrissy Felmuth, and I am an international representative and an organizer with the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees. That's a long word. Otherwise known as the IATSE, aka the Entertainment Union. Previously, I spent 17 years working in series television animation, and in 2022, I came together with my coworkers to form a union at our studio, which was a place in New York called Titmouse. You might know us. That led to my involvement with organizing and working with the IATSE to help workers in games form unions at their own studios. I'm joined today by my fellow panelists, Andrew, Lauren, Vimy, and Dan, and we're all here to discuss today why now is the time for us to unionize and how we can get started today. We're also here to address any questions that you might have. First of all, I would like to extend an extreme thank you to our union kin at Local 16, the stagehands and trade show workers who are behind the scenes of GDC, working hard this week to make this event a success. So a big round of applause for all of their incredible work this week. We're so happy to be at a union event in a union town. So why is now the time for us to form unions with all the things that are going on in the news? It seems like every day there's yet another announcement of layoffs at a games company. Workers are getting cut from their jobs regardless of how long they've dedicated their life to working at a company or how well they've performed at their job. People are scared that they're next, that their livelihood could be taken away at any time, which is exactly why we should form unions now. Forming a union gives you the right to have consent over your working conditions. Why should we continue to live our lives in fear of the layoff hammer coming down when we can stand strong together and protect ourselves from the unilateral changes that get made without our input? We're the ones that affects the most, so why do we not have a say? Should we wait until things are good and then we become complacent to form our unions? In good times and in bad, we deserve a seat at the table. So first off, what is a union? A union is you. It's an organization formed by you and your coworkers coming together to use your power as a worker to negotiate with your employer about the things that matter to you. Are you forced to work crunch? Do you have the ability to negotiate an annual raise? Forming a union creates an ability for you and your coworkers to bargain with your employer to improve your working conditions. So what isn't a union? They're not a separate group that operates without the will of the workers they represent. Unions are democratically run organizations that are run by those in their ranks. Also, that's a picture of my Titmouse crew. If you find me in there, it's a Where's Waldo. So the first step to forming a union is talking to one of your coworkers to see how they feel about a union. Try talking to someone you already know and trust and ask them if they too are concerned about the way things are going at your company or your futures in the games industry. Do they feel they have the power to negotiate for change on an individual level, or would coming together with your coworkers to win a seat at the negotiating table with your boss be a better approach? You can reach out to an organizer at IATSE or at gameworkers.org or at our booth this week. We're at P1861 to help you get started. We'll be with you every step of the way to offer guidance, training, and our strategy to win. Organizing your workplace is complicated. If it were easy, we would have done it already, right? Teaming up with an organizer at IATSE helps us strategize the best way for us to win. We'll talk to all of your coworkers who are eligible to vote in an NLRB election and find out if we have a supermajority of support for a union by talking to them one-on-one. And then we will file for a petition at, oh my God, my notes, why? They disappeared, okay. We'll file for a petition with the National Labor Relations Board, at which point your boss has two options. One of them is to voluntarily recognize you as a union. They basically say, I believe you. You have the numbers that you say you have. And we get to the negotiation table as soon as possible. Or they could force us to an election with the National Labor Relations Board, which gives them a period of time for them to launch an anti-union campaign, which can sway some people into voting no for their union. But with our strategy to win, we can still win your union regardless of an anti-union campaign. So IATSE, or the IA for short, is the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, also known as the Entertainment Union, as I said. We represent over 160,000 workers in jobs like animation, design, visual effects, camera, stage, live events, and even trade show, just like GDC. With our strategy and organizing methods, we've been successful in areas of entertainment where unions historically have not been present before. In visual effects, we formed the first IATSE Visual Effects Union at Marvel Studios in August of 2023, followed shortly thereafter by visual effects workers at Disney, and more recently at James Cameron's studio for the new Avatar movies. We've won at an animation studio in a right-to-work state, Powerhouse Animation in Texas, as well as at Gladius Studios in Puerto Rico. I wonder if any of y'all are here. I don't think so, bummer. We've also recently won for remote animation workers at Disney who live all across the country and work fully remote for the studio. The most poignant win we have for game workers is that we have formed a union at Working Man Entertainment, which Vimy was a part of, and he is here today to talk about that effort as well. So today we're here to talk to you about what you can do right now to start forming a national game worker union. What are the things we're currently facing, and how can we use our power as laborers to change it for the better? How can we frame this as a win-win for everyone involved, including our employers? We'll talk about why we aren't able to enact change as things stand right now. We'll also discuss the things that have been holding us back from moving forward with a union for games and how we can overcome the false narratives we've heard for so long to move forward with the truth and win. So with me today are the people who work in games just like you and are also working to change the industry for the better. So to kick off our discussion today, I would love to pass it over to our four incredible panelists who are helping work towards a national game worker union. So I would love to kick it off to Lauren to introduce herself.
Hello. Check, check. Hey, I'm Lauren. I'm an animation director, and I've been in games for about 7 years. And I think I really love this industry, and I want it to thrive and grow and be better than it is. So I think this is the essential way to make that happen.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
I'm Matthew Vimislik. I'm a project manager at Working Man Interactive. I've been in the games industry for 10, almost 11 years. And we're here to just tell you, and I can tell you for a fact, all of you are capable of forming unions at your studios. It's possible, and 100%. It's doable, and it's fun.
Love that. Andrew?
Hi, my name's Andrew Bezecki. I've been in the industry for, 15 years now. And my sort of radicalization moment was the ABK walkouts over the lawsuits and the allegations that came out. And the thing that was really frustrating about that was knowing that this was an attempt to sort of sweep things under the rug and get these stories out of the press, and these were stories that needed to be told. And over my time in the industry, there has been some positive change, but there are still a lot of things that suck. And the only way we're going to fix those things is by using our collective power to get what we want.
Hi everyone, I'm Dan Beglov. I'm a narrative designer at Sensorium and Team Gramps. I've been in the industry for about 3 years, so I'm still relatively new, and that is actually the reason why I started volunteering with the IA, which is to represent the interests of newcomers and juniors in the industry, especially those of marginalized backgrounds, because as my experience and I'm sure others' experience has shown, those people are very vulnerable to exploitation due to their passion for games, and I want people to be able to enter the industry with like a long career and like a long and safe career, basically, yeah.
As you can tell, these people are absolutely incredible, and I'm so privileged to be up here with them today. So Dan, kind of going off of what you were just talking about, what are some things within union contracts that you've heard of or seen before that you think could help protect workers who are entering the workforce?
Yeah, one thing is standards around applications, specifically around tests. As a game writer, I'm sure if there's any game writers or narrative designers in the audience, you have filled out an unpaid writing test and have maybe multiple. And that's something that I find pretty unethical, and I would like to change that. And the IA has shown in film and TV that this like writing tests can be paid, and because it's labor, so it has to be compensated, and essentially just streamlining the process of lying to the industry, which can be very obtuse and kind of opaque at times.
Yeah, definitely. Kind of going off of that as well, Andrew, thinking about what something that union workers get through their contract would be beneficial to you.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing that being in the industry for a while, what's the average statistic now? It's like I think it used to be 5, and now it's 7 years for like the average tenure in the game industry. That number needs to be way higher, and a lot of that comes from stability, security, talking about things like healthcare, that if you lose your job, that you can still get your medications that you need, or being able to retire, right? Being able to collect. Some people have 401ks, some people have, but there are no guarantees. There's no real sort of long-term stability other than what you're able to kind of claw out for yourself, and even and having these things and not having them sort of swept out from under your feet. Like, quick show of hands, who here has like cool company benefits and perks that are then taken away or changed or removed, and did you get a say in those things changing? Yeah, I didn't think so.
Yeah, I think that is a great segue into something that I'll ask Lauren about. You know a lot of people who work in animation because you're also an animator, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's how I became interested and involved with the IAs, because as an animator, there's a whole animation guild in Los Angeles, and I was always jealous of all of the power that they had with their employers, and I thought, well, why don't we have that in games? And I'm an animator too, and I want my fellow coworkers to have that power as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, Vimy, that also resonates with you, right?
Yeah, but I can't relate to Andrew's issue right now because I don't have to worry about a lot of my benefits being taken away. We got our recognition, our union recognized in the past October, and while we're still in contract negotiations, and that could take a while, in the short term, all of our benefits that we have, they are locked in. Our company can't change them. So, yeah. So recently, was it Activision Blizzard, or some company, they had like their remote working policy revoked, right? And that's something everyone's worried about. And at our company, we still have that remote work policy, and we're taking advantage of it. We have a very generous vacation package, just lots of really great benefits that were always like something we were worried about disappearing, and that worry is gone. And it's incredibly empowering because we take so much ownership over our work. We work on games with small teams. We put our heart and souls into these things. And when you put so much ownership into your work, like, it just made sense for our company especially that you would put that same amount of care into your working conditions. We have ownership over our working conditions, and it feels great.
Yes. Hell yeah. I love a hell yeah. So going off of that, Vimy, I'm just going to throw it right back to you.
Oh, sure.
But now that you have your union, you have the ability to negotiate terms around your job. So what was it like before that?
So we have a kind of small company culture. Our CEO, we'd hang out with him pretty regularly. Some of our executive staff, like, we go on hikes together. So we always just kind of thought if you wanted changes in the company, well, we just talk to our friends, you know? We're hanging out with them all the time. We can make asks, but we found over time, like, just changes didn't happen that way. You can ask for things, but friends are well within their rights to say no, because, you know, it's a nice relationship you have with a friend, and they felt they could just say no. The only time we really found things at our company change was when we accidentally found ourselves doing collective action. One year, we decided, hey, let's just share salary numbers, because we feel like some of us aren't getting paid enough. So all of us got together and we just started sharing what everyone made, and we found out, oh, some people they're making a good amount of money. And it was never like, oh, you're making too much. It was always like, oh, you should ask for more. So we shared this information, and we all ended up having like really nice raises that year because we were able to go into those negotiations with that knowledge. Yeah, you should all do it at your workplace. You should try it out. It's wonderful. We also had parking passes revoked at one point. They didn't want to, because remote work policy, not everyone was coming in. They decided, okay, well, we'll just take them back and we'll reimburse you for parking. Well, at our company, not the best at reimbursement at the time. And all of us had just independently of each other emailed the same message to our CEOs, to our producers, because we didn't know who made the decision. And all of a sudden, within an hour, this was like changed. They took that back. So when we found all these, bits of collective action working over time, all of a sudden, once the union question came up, it was, will this work? Well, it's historically worked at our company in the past, and we've all benefited from it. So why would this turn out any different?
100%. So I'm going to throw it over to you, Andrew. As someone who doesn't work under a union contract, have you found any venues for yourself to make change at your workplace?
Venues, yes, but are they effective? Not at all. The analogy I like using is that it's like a pachinko machine, right? But there's no way to win where everyone's doing active, the CEOs are listening. They've got an open door policy. Come in and tell us your woes and your problems, and we'll hold active listening sessions, and we'll definitely make some changes around here, right? And then what happens, right? Maybe you get some token gestures, but by and large, it kind of falls on deaf ears. And there's also the fear that you're kind of ending up on someone's list. And so there's sort of a power dynamic and a social pressure there to not really voice your actual concerns in that case. And I think that really the only power that we have as individuals still that is commonly practiced in our industry is quit, leave. You have to go to a place where the grass is greener, where that level of corporate BS that they have is more palatable than whatever you're currently dealing with at your current workplace. And it's just this crapshoot of, is this going to be the next company that can take care of me, or am I going to have to just keep hopping around? So it is really sort of a trap that you can fall into if you're not paying attention to it.
Lauren, do you feel like that is something similar to what you've experienced?
Yeah, very similar. Back when I was kind of a junior, just getting started, I was unaware of all the different ways that an employer can take advantage of you. And I realized that the whole studio was going through a tough time because everyone was kind of complaining and mumbling amongst ourselves about things. And management had started, quote unquote, listening to us and kind of gave us these meetings. They're like, we want to hear what you guys are dealing with, and we want to try to help you out. And I was naive and thought, oh, that's awesome. They're listening to us. I can sit next to the CFO and say like this or that, and like we need to change this. And I felt like I was being heard. But a month, 2 months, 3 months passed, nothing changed. There was no actual accountability for my employers. And that was very frustrating. And I want to add, too, like, even when things did change and when it seemed like they did listen, that's great. But, again, there is no, like, real accountability that they have to do anything that you say or that you want them to do. So, yeah.
And Dan, as somebody who's new, right, feeling that ability to hold your employer accountable for stuff is kind of a challenge, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So in my short tenure in the industry so far, I've been pretty lucky to have people who are interested in my professional development on like the managerial side. But at the end of the day, If the organization isn't interested in changing things, then like one manager can't really do much. So collective action is really the only way to get kind of pressure like on the I guess the industry scale, like setting the precedent for things to change, because like at the end of the day, one person can only do so much.
True. So with that in mind, you know, if we're going to our employers to ask for these changes collectively, right? We form our union and we're ready to ask for change. How can we frame that as like a good thing for both sides?
So collective bargaining between workers and management sets a precedent, right? It sets a standard. And standards create stability, and stability is needed for long-term, like productive growth for companies. So any company that's interested in long-term growth and like a beneficial relationship with its workers needs to have some sort of agreement, and like a union agreement is exactly that kind of agreement.
Definitely. How does that resonate with you, Vimy?
I want to look at this a little bit from my boss's perspective, because, you know, running a business is a morally complex sort of situation. Making the best business decisions are not always like the best moral decisions. And it's a balancing act of, you know, trying to do right by your, not just the people that you employ, but the people that you hopefully want to keep employed over the long term. And sometimes they think it's okay to maybe the people who are going to be leaving, maybe not treat them so well. But for the rest of us, like, we don't see it that way. But management isn't seeing it from our perspective all the time. They have to worry about the decisions they need to make, and they're going to justify their actions for that greater good that they're doing. One of the things that is going to happen once our unions like go through, we have the contract, is we're going to have a labor committee. And this is very standard for a lot of unions, where it's a group of coworkers that we're just going to trust to communicate with management, and management will have to talk to them. So if there's any major changes that happen, or even just every 6 months or so, like, you know, hey, we have an influx of money, what's a good way to, you know, manage this? Well, let's talk with the labor committee and figure out a way to move this stuff around. It gives us a seat at the table so that management really does have to listen. They're not doing this from a weird black box where they're thinking about everyone is just like components of this business mathematics. They have to look us in the face, and they need to see if they can make those judgments. And I think that'll end up pretty good for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. Lauren, I think that also you've mentioned things in the past to me about similar things that Dan was talking to you about, sustainability, but also like diversity within games. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, totally. I think diversity is just a small piece of the pie, but I think it's probably one of the most important pieces. And if we can bargain to have a more diverse industry as a whole, we'll have a more profitable industry as a whole. We make games that people play all around the globe, and everybody wants to see themselves represented. And you can't make something if it's not coming from a genuine place. Like if we're not a diverse workforce, then we can't create a diverse craft. We can't make diverse games. So if we can start to do that, I think a union is what we need to help us start to do that more and more, then we'll have a more profitable industry as a whole.
Would you agree with that, Andrew? Do you think that ultimately forming unions will help us kind of like diversify within games?
Definitely, especially in the sense that by to kind of what Dan was talking about in this answer, and Lauren in the previous answer, the idea that you're being able to hold your employer accountable for the promises that they sell you. Right? When they try to get you over there and they've got their mission statement on their website and their values and their pillars that they believe in, but then when push comes to shove, they're more than willing to conveniently ignore those because it's not legally binding, right? It's just a puff piece on a website. So when you're able to get these when you're able to hold an employer accountable, and when the employer is willing to allow themselves to be held accountable in a negotiating setting, then at the very least you have a dynamic where I think that is an attractive thing for an employer to offer, because if I'm going to go look for a company and the company promises me something and they say, and we'll put it in writing, legally we are going to give you these perks, and there's nothing, and there's nothing that we can do about it without your say-so, I think that that will attract a lot of talent in the industry, because they know that there's that safety and security there.
Well said, Andrew. So kind of going off of that, thinking about how like there's that myth that we're forming unions because we're here to like rip it to the ground and set it on fire and start everything all over. But what we're really trying to do here is build sustainability and longevity in our careers. So like, what's a common misconception that you had about unions before you started getting involved?
Yeah, the big one is the idea that the union is this alien. You're swapping out the company contract for this alien third-party contract, that the union is this entity that's going to come in and sweep you off your feet and solve all of your current problems, but replace them with another set of problems. And the big thing that was eye-opening for me about that was I found out that that is anti-union propaganda. That is called third-partying, and that is absolutely a tactic that they use to divide and conquer, where they say, no, the union is this other that is going to come in and just muck everything up, and you don't get any guarantees. And learning that the union is something that you form with your coworkers from the ground up, you're there every step of the way, and that's really empowering. Yeah,
absolutely. Vimy, as somebody who's organized their workplace, I'd love to know what you thought was a misconception about unions.
A misconception that I got bombarded with every time I had one-on-one conversations with my coworkers was the idea that joining a union had like a series of 1, 2, 3, here are the things that happen now that we're a union, here are the things that we have to accept. People wondered, well, is it going to be like in teachers' unions? Like, are we going to have tenure and then like it's going to be hard to like go with somebody or something? Are we going to have like all these crazy regulations of who can do what? Like, I'm not allowed to touch a chair because I'm not in this right union. And really, we had to keep telling them, no, it's what we want. We're the ones that are setting those conditions. And now that we're going through a long process creating that contract, we have long conversations with you guys about the way that we want our workplace to run and the way that we like it. And I think we've confused you guys on a few things at least. But the contract is incredibly specific to our workplace. It's incredibly specific to our culture. And that's just been a really great thing to see.
Yeah, definitely. Lauren, what makes you, what did you have as a thing that you didn't fully understand about unions before you started?
Yeah, before I learned about unions, I kind of also thought it was this third-party situation where it was just yet another big group that was going to take advantage of my passion, right? Like we're all passionate workers. Why else would we be putting up with this crazy industry, right? We love what we do. We're passionate. Some of us are creative. Some of us are technical. It doesn't matter what we do, but we love it. And that's easy to exploit, unfortunately. And that's been my experience a lot of the time so far. And I kind of was weary of unions because I'm like, oh, great, it's just another entity that's going to exploit my passion, and I don't want another one to deal with, right? But yeah, I mean, as everyone else has been saying, I was pleasantly surprised to learn that that the union is us, and as long as we're all participating and we're all learning together how this works, and literally, like, the union is us. We're not going to exploit ourselves. So, yeah.
Definitely. Dan, again, as somebody who's new and is concerned about exploitation, is that something that you were concerned about before you got involved?
Yeah, absolutely. As someone, who's entering the industry, I'm always Like it's natural to be wary about like a big organization kind of stepping in and like dictating your interests, basically. But that's, again, not at all what a union is. A union is us, the workers. It is up to us to establish it. It is up to us to negotiate it, and it is up to us to maintain it. I'd also like to touch on another thing.
Yeah.
A lot of people who are even like interested in unionizing and have like beliefs about like collective action see kind of striking as the be-all and end-all of unions. Like something that really comes up in the media a lot when unions are mentioned, as like specifically like last year. But that is not nearly everything that a union can like help you with. It is a last resort that has proven effective, but union can offer you so much more than that, like from negotiating your healthcare, benefits, like all sorts of mutual aid are something that a union can help you with if you put in the work to establish and maintain it.
Absolutely, 100%. So kind of like diverting to a whole nother subject now, but Vimy, I'd like to ask you why the IA was the choice for you.
So it's kind of a special case for us. Working Man Interactive, we work with a lot of clients like Disney, Marvel, Nickelodeon, and we kind of noticed they all had associations, not only through the unionizing efforts through the VFX that we were aware of, so like Marvel, Disney, Avatar are involved with that, but also, many of we worked with some of the showrunners on some of these shows, and we knew that they were like Animation Guild members, so we were like, oh, maybe if we work with the IATSE, maybe they'll reach out, like once we go public, and they did. We got so many nice messages from so many of these different people. I won't name any names, I won't name any companies, but like they didn't just send them to us, they sent them to my CEO saying, congratulations on your game union.
Yeah, 100%. Lauren, I feel like you have that connection to folks at the Animation Guild, but for games work, why do you believe the IA is best positioned?
There's a lot of reasons, but yeah, obviously I can see that the IA is well versed in crafts, right? Specifically animation. I see how things are going there, and I know that they understand the kind of work that we do in games. And then I also have just been really impressed by like the IA's strategy of like informing. Right, we're here now, like just learning and making sure that all of the workers understand what a union is, because I think a union is so much stronger when we're all a big part of it. Otherwise, like I don't know, I wouldn't want to be part of a union that just like does the work for everyone, because then no one would understand and we wouldn't have the power that is the point. It's the whole point of a union. So I really, really get behind that aspect of the IA, that it really is the workers, and they're there to help us and inform us how this even works and make sure we're prepared. So yeah, it's cool.
Unionism is highly participatory. Andrew, as somebody who doesn't necessarily have that connection to folks who work in already established IATSE crafts, how do you feel about the IA?
Yeah, the thing that I like about the IA is that ultimately they know the games industry even if they don't know that yet, in the sense that making games is a highly I'm preaching to the choir here, right? But yeah, games are art, right? Highly creative, highly these beautiful works that are made. It's also highly technical. You need very specific skill sets. You need to learn how to use an editor, or you need to learn how to make your own editor, or all of these different things and disciplines. And there's this spectrum of creative craft to technical discipline that games it lives and breathes all the time. And navigating that and forming a union, you need to be able, the union needs to work for all of us, right? It needs to work for the super creative designers. It needs to work for the super crunchy programmers. It needs to work for artists and all of these different disciplines that come together to make a game. and navigating that water and making sure that one group isn't left out in these negotiations is something that I think that the IA has experience with VFX unions and the Animation Guild and things like that.
Definitely. How about you, Dan, as a narrative designer? How does the IA resonate with you?
I would like to just echo Andrew's point about like benefits, like this should benefit everyone from like the most crunchy programmers to narrative designers and artists. But I think like I particularly respect IATSE's bottom-up approach to making sure everyone in the studio gets a voice and gets the opportunity to vote on their union. And I think the long-term goal is to establish a industry-wide union presence that can stand up to management demands across companies. And I think the IA has the best strategy to achieve that with holistically getting in as many people as possible, like one studio at a time.
Hell yeah. I say hell yeah a lot. I apologize. So a question for all of the panelists and also for everybody in the audience. If you had a union vote today, would you vote yes? Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Raise those hands. Love to see it. Let's do a vote right now, everybody. We're a union. We did it. This is great. Just small fires. Just small fires. Well, that's fantastic. I'm so glad that there's so many of you in this room that are open and supportive of forming unions, and we can't do this work without you. We have to do it together. It's y'all at your studios forming your unions. We're here to help and support and make sure that happens, but we can't do it without you. So I'd love to open it to the floor for questions. If anybody has any, please step up to the mics that are available. Oh, I love it, a long line. Let's start on the left side, and then we'll go to the right side.
Or
Hi
go
there.
back and forth.
So I work as a sound designer out of Canada, and a lot of my work is typically through contract. It's very hard to get in-house work. So I'm just wondering, like, what power do I have as a contractor, if any power at all, to make unionization happen or work for me in any way?
Does anybody want to answer that?
So the question was, what power do you have as a contractor to be able to form a union at your company?
Or just in general, like working through my life as a contractor,
Okay.
how to union, or how can I facilitate unionization?
Yeah, I can take that. Yeah, not quite the same power as like full-time employees, but like way more than you think. You can establish an agreement with the company that you're working at. If you and your contract coworkers, I mean, you have to reach out to the other contractors. If you reach out to your employer and say, hey, we are only going to work under these set conditions, you can do that. And they can they don't have to go with that, but you can, do stuff to make sure that like they'll go along with it. Not necessarily strike. You can do like a one-day thing. You can even just like, hey, let's just tamper down stuff for a little bit. I have seen this happen with some other game folks otherwise, in other areas of the industry. I've talked to them about it, and it's honestly the same process. You are just talking to people you trust, fellow contractors. You're talking to them one by one. You're getting a game plan together, and then once you're ready, you go ahead and announce. You can reach out to IATSE, and they're going to have all the recommendations for how you can go about that process. And they'll have some amazing resources to make sure that you guys are trained and you can handle that properly. They did an amazing job training us, and we felt really prepared. So I'm sure you'd be in good hands.
Also, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that IATSE is, like all of our pre-existing union contracts are largely contract-based anyways, contract-based employees, so.
Yeah, that's a lot of entertainment work is gig work. It's project-based, it's contract-based. And historically, for over 100 years, we've written contracts for workers who are under that project-based sort of working model. But definitely come by our booth when you talk more about that.
Great, thanks a lot.
Yeah. Over on this side?
The previous questioner was from Canada, and the first letter of IATSE is international. So what can IATSE do to help with unionizing studios and coordinating unionization that are across countries?
I feel like I'm just going to answer that. The IA and IATSE, you're right, is international. We are international in the United States, Canada, and Puerto Rico. But that does not necessarily mean that we do not work globally to help people around the globe form unions in their countries. Labor law varies wildly from country to country, and our jurisdiction remains within the United States, Canada, and Puerto Rico. So that's like the law language we know. But we have consistent conversations with a group called UniGlobal, which is a global unionization effort. Because, again, like we're talking about game workers worldwide, and we want to make sure that labor around the globe is protected. All workers deserve rights, regardless of their location. So it is a really important conversation to be having to talk about unions in other countries and how we can collaborate. Great question. I love
We were
that.
also talking with I forget the acronym, but the Great Britain, the one in the UK, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The Independent Workers of Great Britain. Yes, they're awesome folks. Let's go on this side.
Hi. I know there's a massive line, so I'm definitely gonna try to keep it short. But I'm currently a student, and I feel like I really enjoyed hearing you guys talk about people who are newer in the industry, just because I feel like a lot of the time they're kind of left out of the conversation. I feel like it's pretty fair to say, as a student, a lot of us feel like it's really easy to take advantage of students, just because there's this sort of like desperation and like fear that like plagues a lot of students trying to break in. You know, there's so many. It's kind of a very messy time. Like I feel like that's fair to say. So I was just kind of curious, specifically about like Dan's experience as kind of someone newer to the industry, about whether you've faced like kind of what kind of reaction was given to you when you kind of expressed interest in unionization, or if there was even some kind of like pushback to that interest, and then how IATSE supports, just a little bit more information maybe about how IATSE supports like people newer to the industry or people trying to break in, or like kind of where to start, if that's where you are. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. Yeah, I would love to take that. So as students and newer people in the industry, you're entering like a very opaque, like I said, and sometimes pretty hostile place.
Right.
But the thing is, your peers as students, they will end up like getting jobs, some of them, and once you have a job, you are a worker that can unionize. And as a student right now, you can start having these conversations with people, because a union, like starting a union, is all conversation based, and like since you're like preparing to enter the industry, you can start learning about your rights as a worker, so that when you do enter the industry, you don't fall prey to like the exploitation
Right.
that some like management inflicts on newer and like people and students, but also just like keeping in contact with everyone in your network. Once they get jobs at studios, talk to them about unionizing. In the meantime, like learn about it and get ready to start doing it once you do enter the workforce. But also IATSE has been incredibly supportive. Since I've started volunteering at the AC at IATSE, they've been incredibly supportive of me as a junior narrative designer, and they've like consistently heard me out about like the particular interests that like newer people in the industry have had as opposed to like veterans. It's a very different set of concerns,
Right.
but at the end of the day, we are all workers and we all want to have the industry that benefits us all.
Cool.
Yes.
Form unions.
Form
Okay.
a student union. I always told my students that.
And
Yes, yeah. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, as a student, you do also have like a right to form a union, especially like if you are employed in any capacity, you can unionize.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And with regards to like retaliation or like that fear, that is something that employers can have traditionally relied on to
Right.
kind of keep you quiet. And the important thing is knowing your rights. They cannot threaten you with firing over organizing. That is a protected right that you have. So by learning, like Dan was saying, learning these things and knowing what you're allowed to do, will just give you that much more of a leg up. So the union busting playbook is remarkably stale for the companies. They've been pulling the same tricks for the last 100 years or so, and IATSE knows how to combat those.
Hell yeah, I'm still terrified, but thank you. That was great insight.
You can do it.
Hell yeah. We'll take this one.
So I wanted to ask a very similar question. How has IATSE treated the idea of maybe going at a guild level for, career paths? Because there is so much turnover. There are small companies that'll maybe make one game and then disappear. And there'll be 30 other companies in that town. You're going to hop around between all these companies. You can't make a union every time. You need a union that you are already in that'll help you get into places, stay in places, and afterwards.
Oh, I would.
Okay, if you're looking at
Take
me,
that
I'll
one.
answer it. A great model for us to look at for that sort of idea is the Animation Guild. And while there are really large employers within that, there are also really small employers within it. So it's not to exclude small employers, and it's also not to say that if one shutters that there aren't others that are part of that union that those union workers can go to. It's about building that large network with employers of all sizes, small to large, so that we can have that mobility to go from place to place and still be union. And while that doesn't happen overnight, we need the people that are working at those studios to form the unions at their studios so that we can have that kind of like mobility within jobs. Does that answer your question? Or do you want to add?
Yeah,
I
I
wanna
want
add.
to.
Yeah, please.
Go, you go.
Oh, okay. So a matter of creating an industry-wide union for game workers doesn't involve just going to that end point. There is a lot of work involved with just getting independent companies to go along, because once you have unions set up at certain shops, like all of a sudden, like the demands that they make, they become standardized across the industry. And you see that like in a lot of different industries if you look historically. The things that workers fight for eventually just kind of become taken for granted. Weekends, that came out of, union efforts, workers, revolting in the streets, making sure that it happened. When we reach the point where we have like an industry-wide guild, like that's kind of the point where like you are dealing with the publishers have to start having their own like union to try to like fight against our power. That is a long goal that probably is going to come faster than I imagine. I'm very conservative when it comes to this sort of stuff, and a lot of my coworkers are way more accelerationist about it than I am. It's a thing that'll happen, but there's a lot of really amazing transformational things that are going to happen when these just happen at company. So those are the steps I'm really excited about. You look at these places as like they'll rise and fall. I don't see it falling. I see those workers all of a sudden going to other places where they're like, well, I'm used to this. I'm used to having these work conditions, and I have the tools necessary to fight for it again and make it faster this time, make it better. This is something that's going to spread like wildfire.
See, you didn't need me to answer that.
Yeah.
Lauren, did you want to add anything to that?
I want to hear more questions. I think it's a good place to end. I don't
Great.
wanna...
So
How about this side?
to add on top of that, what about so to add on top of both that and the international question, what if it's some like an organization that's technically not a union but can operate like one to try to like basically an unofficial union to try to bypass the whole thing with different countries having different.
An unofficial union?
Yeah,
To bypass?
like the whole thing about different countries having different labor laws and all that.
That's a really in-depth question. I have a bunch of other IA reps here who could definitely help answer that. So I would encourage you to meet us out in the hall. We all have these shirts on, so that I can get the best answer for you.
Okay.
I apologize that I don't have that answer for you right now.
Yeah, it's fine.
We'll go to this side.
Hey, So I'm actually with IA Local 28 up in Portland, Oregon.
Sweet.
We do yeah.
Glad to have you.
Yeah. And we do stage and trade, and it is so exciting to be here and see you guys here, because it means that what we get, the good stuff we get, you guys are going to get.
Hell yeah.
And that you can do it, IATSE can help you do it, and it's worth it. But I got a question, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the question is basically, how does IATSE support workers through more contentious organization or labor dispute issues? What are some examples of that?
I don't want to go into the examples of that.
I mean, you don't have to give examples, but.
Okay.
Or just saying, yeah.
I will say, and I'm going to give a lot of credit to my CEO, we don't have as many contentious issues as I think we were expecting. Once you have a big organization kind of enter in, there's a level of respect there that I wasn't ready for. Our CEO lets our union know ahead of time about almost anything that's going on, anything where they think the union might need to get involved. It's been a little bit more chivalrous than I was expecting going in. As far as the contentious issues, they got lawyers who are very good at talking. And they're very good at communicating with us and letting us know what the company said. It's, we'll have things happen, but it's just been a very smooth process for the most part. I don't worry day to day about a lot of things. They worry about it. Sorry.
Keeps me up at night.
2 a.m. once, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have the power of all the IA behind it. So our legal team, our organizing team, we're all here to help and support and facilitate as much as we can. So, yeah, 100% behind it.
Hey, well, thank you very much.
Yeah, appreciate you being here. We'll have time for just one more question. I apologize. But anybody else who's still in line, please, I encourage you to meet us out in the hallway or come by our booth to ask your questions to us directly, because we're here to help and answer your questions. So please definitely come by. We'll hang out in the hallway afterwards.
Really sorry. I really appreciate what you guys do. I appreciate the Twitch streams, the outreach,
Oh,
the
sick.
talk. Thank you. I'm actually just here to say, if any of you work at Electronic Arts, or if you know anyone who works at Electronic Arts, come talk to me.
Oh,
okay,
sick.
thank you.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that. Get in there.
Yeah.
If
Yeah, we
it
got time.
was- If he was the last one,
Mulligan. Mulligan, do it.
You go.
Magic the Gathering reference. Nice.
Love it.
Alrighty. Andrew Jorgensen, junior game design student at Indiana University, Indianapolis. As someone with neurodivergent disabilities and stuff, I feel that for those individuals like myself that are attending here today, I feel that that when it comes to entering the industry, particularly with game design programming and stuff, we tend a major issue for individuals like us is overthinking and stuff, and it kind of hinders our ability to kind of gives us insecurities or hurting our confidence when it comes to growing in game programming and stuff, and because there's so many different variables and stuff of do we need to add this? Does this need to be refined and stuff? And it's just I was just curious about whether or not there is a need for neurodivergent members of the gaming industry community to be represented by IATSE in the near future.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I think that's a very important aspect of it's an important aspect of the diversity that I think unions like us can make sure that we can represent and write into our contracts. So absolutely, it's very important.
Yeah, because sometimes with overthinking and stuff, we can get so wrapped up in overthinking that we can't even program anything because we're just, I don't know what to do. It's individuals like us, we can relate to that, can we?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so I'm
would you mind if I added something to that too?
Yes, go ahead.
I am a neurodivergent person, and thank you for like asking this question. It's also like a very important thing to ask. But like a union contract can ensure that you have accommodations as a neurodivergent individual, that your employer can't impose things on you that would be especially difficult on you as a member of the neurodivergent community, which includes like specific deadlines or even like being able to be in the office, which like for neurodivergent people or like physically disabled folks can be really difficult. So having a union contract will definitely like help you as a neurodivergent person. I say as someone who is also that.
Yeah.
Absolutely, we need representation, and like you say you're worried about overthinking it, but really we are all game developers here, and what do game developers do best? We solve really complex problems and we overthink a ton, right? I can think of no better group of people to dismantle, find a broken system, figure out what's wrong with it, dismantle it, and build a new system that is robust, accounts for all of the different players in the game, is QA tested and approved, and has all of the pieces needed to be like an actual, because that's our job, that's our day-to-day job. So I'm really excited to see what happens when game developers really start digging in, rolling up their sleeves and digging into the particulars of rebuilding this system in a way that works for all of us.
Also, just a quick note before I wrap us up for today, that sign-in sheet is still circulating, so if you haven't signed in, please do. Sorry? Evaluations.
Fill out the evaluations.
Oh, fill out the evaluations. Yes, do that too. Also, we're going to have a party tomorrow night at Tempest Bar and Box. If you have not RSVP'd, please do. If you got a zine, that QR code in the zine will take you to a link up top page. Hell yeah, right there, Diana. And it will take you to a link up top page where you can find all of our stuff this week. But please come by our booth. Let's talk. Let's talk more about this, because like this doesn't happen without you. It's got to happen with you. And again, big thank you to the Local 16 folks who are here working this event. And look forward to seeing y'all in the halls and at our booth, B1861. We will see you all again very soon.
Thank you.